Taxes were a big deal in Rome, as taxes are a big deal now, right? Everyone that pays taxes would know. Just like taxes were a big deal today, Rome had big taxes. All right, Rome, the way they charged the taxes were they would select a certain territory and then determine a certain amount of money that this territory had to give to Rome as taxes, and then select a man that would collect the taxes from this town or city. And say, for example, 30 million pounds. It would say 30 million pounds is what you're going to give us this year. How you're going to get it, that's your problem. Okay? And that man, usually a Jew, would go into that town and collect the 30 million pounds. But the problem was that Rome didn't care if this man collected 60 million pounds instead of 30 and kept 30 million pounds in his pocket. So this publican, that's the way they called them, this publican would take advantage of the situation. So if Rome oppressed the Jews with taxes, the publicans would oppress the Jews with taxes and with fraud on top of that. So they would fraud the people and take more money than they're supposed to. And this is how they would become rich in a short period of time, because they were allowed to fraud the people. And the people knew that. So every time anyone went around a publican, a tax collector, the last thing they wanted to do was actually shake their hands, was actually have a conversation with them. There was no good morning for them. Nobody wanted to be around these fraudulents that all they wanted to do was take advantage of their power and their position that Rome had given them. Guessing that as soon as anyone ran into one of these guys, these publicans, tax collectors, they would probably turn their face to the side, avoid them at all cost, and maybe some of them were even rude to these publicans because they were not the best people in the Jewish community. And so it happened that Jesus ran into one of these guys once, and he didn't turn his face. He didn't avoid him. And least did he say something rude to him. Instead, he walks up to him. He calls him by his name and tells him, "Follow me." So this man immediately drops everything, leaves everything, leaves this franchise that was giving him millions of dollars every single year, drops it, and follows Jesus. You see, that man was Matthew. Jesus called him. Instead of hate, he got love. Instead of rejection, he got a calling from Jesus. Instead of misery, he got purpose. And that's what happens when Jesus encounters us. Now, did the Jews have a reason to hate Matthew? Yes, they did. More than one. A few million reasons. Did Peter have a reason to not like Matthew? I'm pretty sure he did. Why? Because Jesus was hanging around with Peter, and Peter was a businessman. So businessmen were the ones that would the most frauded. Peter probably had to pay a few £1,000s to Matthew at some point. Did Peter have a reason to be mad at Matthew? Was he in his sole right to say, I don't want to hang out with Matthew and I don't want to have dinner with Matthew? Did he have that right? Yes, he did. Humanly speaking, he had all the authority to say, I don't like Matthew because he's a fraud and he's a liar and he's stolen from me. Did he? He did. But surprisingly, he had dinner with Matthew that night because Matthew invited Jesus to dinner, and along came Peter, and things were reestablished. Now, they weren't enemies anymore. Now they were in the same cause, the cause of Jesus. They were both following Jesus. They had a common denominator, which was Jesus and his message, Jesus and his miracles, Jesus and his mission. Now, you in your personal life, you might have all the right to be mad at somebody because they probably did do you wrong. But as soon as they come to Jesus, as soon as they are called to Jesus, then you have a common denominator. That common denominator is Jesus. The common cause is his mission. You both have the same calling now. If there's someone in your life that did you wrong, which I'm sure there's many, and you see the fruits of repentance, it's time to reconcile. Reconcile, just like Peter did with Matthew. Reconcile, just like Jesus allowed it to happen between Matthew and the Jews. After that, Matthew was a disciple of Jesus. So you have Peter, you have Matthew, and you have Jesus. So I guess the question to ask is, who do you identify yourself with? Are you Peter? Do you have more than one reason? Do you have thousands of reasons to hate someone, to be angry at somebody? If that's the case, if that somebody comes to Jesus, accepts Jesus, and shows fruits of repentance, the natural Jesus reaction would be to have dinner with them, reconcile. Are you in the middle of two situations? Are you that one person that's going to reconcile two broken relationships? Are you that counselor? Are you that pastor? Are you that youth leader that instead of breaking a relationship, you're actually reconciling it? Or are you Matthew? See, I feel like everyone is Matthew at some point. That Matthew that needs to encounter Jesus, turn their life around, and really stop taking advantage of the system, of their home, their family, their people, their friends. I don't know who you are. I know who I am. I'm Matthew. I'm also Jesus sometimes, and I'm also Peter. I'm all three, and I need to identify myself with all three characters in the story and learn when I'm developing any of these characters in my life.